We are born free.
And we will die free.
The time in between, though,
That's complicated.
In that time, governments, institutions, and our egos will limit our ability to find true freedom in this life. These are real stories of real people overcoming the odds, persevering in justice, and unlocking their potential. Welcome to Finding Freedom. Here's your host, John Odermatt.
Welcome back to another edition of Finding Freedom right here on the Lions of Liberty podcasts. And Finding Freedom, what is this show? What am I trying to bring you, to deliver to you every single week? Well, if you haven't figured it out by now, or if you're new to listening to Finding Freedom, what I'm striving to do is to bring you a powerful mix of content. And it's going to be content that inspires you. It's going to be content that helps you to optimize your health, to become the healthiest version of yourself. And it's going to be content that helps you to grow in your faith. And this is all with the purpose of setting your mind, your body, and your soul free. And today's episode, it's going to be that inspiring content. It's going to be that content focused on sharing a story, bringing a guest on here who has a real life lived experience of just a very traumatic and difficult time that they went through. My guest today spent significant time in prison. He's overcome that obstacle. He has survived to get to the other side and is currently building a prosperous, impactful life. So I'm looking forward to you getting to hear my interview today with an awesome guest. We'll introduce him in just a minute. But before we get to that, I just want to remind you, I just want to let you know that, of course, here at Lions of Liberty, we have the Lions of Liberty Pride. It's our patrons, our supporters, and there's two places you can go to join the Pride to get in on the fun of all the bonus content, certain levels you get to help produce shows. At certain levels you get to meet with us every month and shoot the shit and talk about what is new in the world and what is new here at Lions of Liberty. So you can join the Pride by going to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty or lionsofliberty.locals.com and join up. And Brian and I would love to have you there. So hopefully you're enjoying the new slimmed down Lions of Liberty just Monday and Wednesday. We do have something coming for you on Fridays here soon in the next couple weeks. So keep an eye out for that. Make sure you're subscribed to the Lions of Liberty network feed as well as the Finding Freedom solo feed in order to find the easiest way to find the Finding Freedom solo feed where you get only these episodes, Finding Freedom. You can search Finding Freedom and John Odermatt, and it'll pop right up. So without wasting any more time, let's get to this awesome interview today. Okay, I am joined here today by Chris Hunter. Chris was arrested back in 2005, and he went to trial. The charges were conspiracy to distribute cocaine. There are also some gun charges in there as well, all nonviolent. Very, very important to point that out. He was sentenced to 420 months in prison. He ended up doing 16 years, 6 months, and he was released in May due to the CARES Act, due to everything that happened with COVID when they were granting releases. So, Chris, welcome to Finding Freedom.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. And, what made me reach out to you is we're friends on Facebook. As I'm friends with a lot of people in this criminal justice movement who have done time in prison. And I saw that you had a catering business that you were doing. So that's what kind of tipped me off to you. And honestly, the food looked pretty good. So you're doing a good job there. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes here as we get into your story. First thing I want to start with my guests, especially my guests who have done time in prison with a story like this, overcoming so many obstacles. I like to kind of rewind the clock and go back to that time before prison, the time before you were arrested. And you can even go all the way back to childhood if you want to, wherever you think you need to go with it, to really set up your story and let people know a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I was raised by a really, good mother, good home, Catholic mother, did everything in the world to make sure that I had nice clothes and everything. So that really wasn't. It had nothing to do with just. I mean, we were poor, but it didn't have anything to do with super poverty or abuse or anything like that. It just at a young age just began partying, and so as that goes on, you find ways to try to afford what you're partying on. And as a young person, I began to dabble in getting drugs for people and stuff like that. So it just sort of snowballed into from young childhood to adulthood. I had a pretty serious addiction to benzos, and they're not cheap, and so you had to find any which way to get it. And
But benzos are, I mean, that's basically Xanax, right?
yes,
Is that
yes,
same thing? Okay.
absolutely. I guess I should have said that for so
No,
everybody
that's a
can
lot of
know.
honestly. Yeah, I mean, I heard about. I guess he's a celebrity to some people, Jordan Peterson, and he got addicted to benzos. And I heard this term benzos, and he ended up having to go to Russia in order to detox. And then I looked it up, and it's Xanax. So I don't know why. Yeah, I guess
Yeah, it's just
people more
well, it's
commonly
a
know
whole
it as Xanax.
family of them. It's a whole,
Yeah.
but Xanax. Yeah, my thing was Xanax, and I, as a really early age, I ended up going to state prison for a little bit of time for writing prescriptions and stuff. And as I would come home or from wherever, from these little, I just would start again, and I had to find a way to. They're a terrible thing to get on because people think that heroin and fentanyl and all this is a hard withdrawal, but there's nothing that sends you into a psychotic episode like a Xanax withdrawal. And so you have to, once you get on something like that, you're locked in. You're now a slave to it, and a job really won't cover it. So what are you going to do? You got to try and make some money the best way you can, and the fastest. And so I began selling drugs, and went from selling marijuana to selling cocaine, and eventually in 2005 it all came crashing down.
How old were you about that time?
I was 33 years old,
Okay.
and they rounded up a bunch of us on. I had a couple tattoo shops at the time, and they were called Platinum Tattoos. They weren't at the same time, but I had one, then I had a second one. And my thing isn't just to throw anything off on the feds, but they do put a 10 on the two. And
Hmm.
so, they like to exaggerate to a degree to make it, you know, seem worse than it probably really is. So they called us the Platinum Crew.
Okay.
And
Yeah, so
which,
they put that
you know,
name on there to make it sound like it's this huge operation. Yeah, I got you.
right. It's
Yeah.
great to jumpstart prosecutors' careers, and it looks
Mhm.
good on the evening news and stuff. But there never was ever anything that was. We were not a crew, and it wasn't named. Definitely wasn't named that. But
Yeah.
that's how they did us.
So, how did it end up going down? So you're 33 years old. You have this tattoo shop. You're addicted to Xanax, and you're selling drugs. How did the bust end up going down?
Well, what had happened was somebody that was close to us had got in trouble with the feds, and there was stuff exploding all over, little stuff all over, and the signs were all there that we were just we were being watched, and that it possibly was going to come crashing down. somebody that we knew that was close to us had agreed to cooperate, and so he did a number of things with people close to me, and one morning at 5 o'clock, boom, the door comes tumbling down, and you got 5 or 6 guys shoving guns in your face, and you look and see what letters are on the jackets, and if there's letters on the jackets, there's not going to be a bond, and you're probably not going to be out for a while.
Yeah.
So that was the case, and just pretty much just knew it was over at that point.
So you get arrested, and like you said, you know it's over at that point. I'm sure reality starts to set in. And actually, one thing I wanted to ask you about: so you have this addiction, and you get arrested, and like you were talking about, the withdrawal of going through that is pretty severe. What was that like? How did that withdrawal happen?
Well, what's so funny? When they come to hit the door, it was a very thick door on a little apartment, and they couldn't get it down right away. And the first thing I went and did was ate a handful of Xanax, since I was in my boxers. They always come before daylight. And I just sat there and smoked half a cigarette, and until they finally could get the door down, and I knew it was over. But that's a good question. The withdrawals in my county jail, they had become aware of the fact that people coming off these Xanax you're definitely going to have a seizure. You're definitely going to flop out. You're going to hallucinate. You really have hallucinations. And if anybody's watching this that's on Xanax, I pray to God that they never do them, that they wean themselves off slowly and leave them alone, because you see and believe things just as if it was reality when you're coming off these things. And that's what makes them so much more deadly than coming off an opiate, where you're just sick, bodily sick, but no, you trip out and you always have seizures. So they were aware of this in our county jail, and they bring you down with a less strong benzo, which is Klonopin, and they wean you slowly off, but it's still bad, and I was despondent because I knew it was over, and I have a son I love dearly, and we were really, really close, and I wasn't even reaching out to people on the streets. I just pretty much was like, it's over, when the feds get you, just take a nap. That's all you can do. And so I withdrew, but thanks to the Klonopin, it wasn't as bad as it could be.
Yeah. So what I think you said that you went to trial. Did you go to trial, or was there a plea deal?
I did. And
why did you decide to get? Can you talk about that decision and why you decided to take it to trial?
Well, I had they gave me a court-appointed lawyer, and a new law had passed at the time. The feds have something called ghost dope. Mm-hmm. Yep. And that means that they find you guilty and then add up all the testimony or whatever anybody's agreed to that happened, even though it's not physical. That testimony is evidence, and it's just the same as having the physical evidence. So this brand new law had passed about 60 days before we get arrested, and this court-appointed lawyer is telling me it's going to help me, and I hadn't made any buys. I didn't have anything in my home. And so basically, I'd like to put a small percentage on those two things and a large percentage on ignorance of the law, and just a desire to come home and be free. So, but ignorance of the law mainly. If you don't know how they can convict you, and you're going to trial, you're in big trouble. And I was in big trouble. And they came
So
with,
which in your defense, most people don't know that. They don't know.
no,
I
no,
mean,
they don't.
yeah.
And as I found out, I eventually I fought my case myself for so long and learned to research so well that I became unignorant of the law and found out that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So it can't be used. You can't argue, well, I didn't know, because everybody's supposed to know. If you're 18 years old out there and you're selling drugs and you don't know that what you're doing is going to get you 30 years and you go say, well, I thought it was 2. It doesn't matter. Ignorance of the law. So, I didn't know. And I proceeded to trial. They offered me like 5 to cooperate, and I didn't want to go down that path. And so then they came with 10, and I thought that they had to have physical evidence. Here I'm charged with 5 kilograms, and you got a half a kilogram of evidence. And how are you going to find me guilty? So I went to trial.
You went to trial. I'm doing the calculation now because they do it in months. So in the intro, I said 420 months, 35 years.
Yeah.
So,
If you get all your good time, you do 31 years. My first out date was 2036.
So
If I got all my good time.
When you hear that, and you're around the age, like you said, 33, so in that neighborhood, you hear that sentence, 420 months. I mean, if it was me, the first thing I'll be thinking, how long is that? 420 months. I mean, because nobody thinks in months. But after you figure out that it's 35 years, what's going through your mind at that point in time?
The funny thing is, the judge said, I'm going to give you 420 months, Mr. Hunter. Good luck. And I have a strong faith, and I had been through so many other little situations in life where I was always rescued through a lot of different things. And I just never believed. And also, again, in my mind, this lawyer's told me this law's passed. You're going to win on appeal. So I just don't believe it. It doesn't sink into. Instead of getting sad, which I had been sad up to that point, I became mad. And so I moved forward mad and determined to give some of that time or all that time back. I believed I would come. I always believed from day one that I would come home early.
So you started serving your sentence. Can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like going into prison? This was your first time in prison, right?
Well, it was my first time in the feds. I had been to state prison when I was 19, and I was no stranger to jail or anything like that at that point. I'd been to jail lots of times and programs and stuff. So I wasn't fearful. In fact, I was excited to get out of the county jail, because the county jail where we're from here is just right next to hell. They starve you to death, and it's a horrible place. So I was excited to get to prison, and I hadn't made any decision to make any changes at that point in my life. I want to say that. So my first dream was to get to a prison somewhere and find somebody and get a couple jugs of wine and just get a good meal and settle in. And that was my goal and my dream at that time.
How long did you continue with that mindset?
Well, initially, we get to that here in just a little bit. Okay. I stayed that way for quite a while.
Yeah.
They sent me to Oklahoma, which is the transfer center to the feds. They then sent me to my my place where I would do my time, and that was Manchester, Kentucky. And I lived in there as close to how I lived on the streets, as possible. And that went on, and I was transferred then because, just they get tired of you some places. Sometimes they can't even catch you, but they'll just get tired of you and just boom, transfer you to another place. And that's what happened with me. They just got sick of me and sent me to Terre Haute, Indiana. And I continued on like that for a while. About 9 years. Now, the whole time I'm fighting my case, so the only thing I'm educating myself in is law. And I was diligent with that. But when I wasn't in the law library, I was trying to basically just live life the way I lived on the streets. And about 2000, I got transferred again. They got tired of me at Terre Haute and sent me to an institution in North Carolina called Butner, North Carolina, the Deuce. And I sort of right there, I don't know whether it was maturity or, I had picked up a Bible also. Could have been a combination of both. And I just finally said, man, you can't win in this life. You just can't win. And so I decided that you'd have to be stupid to keep giving people the opportunity to tell on you. And it was time to start making some changes, but I wasn't 100% all in for change yet, but just the wheels were turning for sure.
So what happened that really made you change, that made you go that whole 100%?
I got the unit I was in with a real good friend who happened to be there, and I hated to leave him. But one day they came into the unit and said, anybody that thinks that they can transfer, come to my office. We're putting a drug program in this unit. Everybody's got to either move or transfer. So, I said, hey, man, this is my shot. I got to get back close to home. And they sent me to a facility in Lexington, Kentucky, FMC Lexington, and it's a lower security prison. So my points had dropped. At this point, I had already gave back to 5 years, so I'm down to 30 years now, and my points dropped, and I'm eligible to go to a lower security prison. Haven't been in trouble for about a year and a half, and so I went and they said, we're going to transfer you. So they transferred me to a place called FMC Lexington, and I got there and I ran into a guy from my city, and it was clear to me from just basic discernment, that he had made some serious change. I could recognize it as real. And he invited me to a Bible study, and I agreed to go, and we started studying, and eventually I started going to church, and I got baptized, and the next thing I know, I looked up, and 4 or 5 years had gone by, and I had been living a different life.
That's amazing.
And so that's what happened. So I'm still fighting my case throughout all this, and really, thought I was going to win. I had a hearing in 2015 against the lawyer for giving me the bad advice, and I mean, it looked dead set. I was going to have this. And right then they also took 3 more years off, so it took me to 27 years. So I had a 27-year sentence, and it looked like I was about to go home, and I was making these changes, and really, after a couple years, I had changed. People would just come and say, "Hey, Brother Chris," to me, in connecting me with the church and stuff, and that was so strange. But yeah, I had changed. I hadn't made changes, I had changed. And so that's how it happened for me.
When did you get into? Because I know I've seen you talk about really enjoying cooking, and that starting while you were in prison. When did you start helping out in the kitchen, or I guess
Well,
working in the kitchen?
it's strange how it all happened. Now that goes back to the beginning. My first job at Manchester was in this factory. They have, I'm sure you know about it, Unicor, and they put you
Mhm.
in there, and you've got a certain amount of number of tickets you've got to do, and that's the only way you can make your little quota, and you almost don't even have time to go to the bathroom. It's got so bad. So you
Hmm.
just sit there, and I was on a soma, and I was like, I cannot do, I'm not doing my time like this. So I said, I went to the chow that day, and I asked the guy, and this is early on in my sentence, probably within the first year, and I asked the kitchen food administrator, I said, hey, I want to be a cook. He said, bring me a cop out, which is a piece of paper that he has to sign and Unicor has to sign, and you take it to your counselor and you get a job change. So I you're quitting Unicor. This is great money. I'm out of here. But at the same time, the kitchen just as good a hustle. So I'm thinking in terms of hustling. Well, I get in there, and I wasn't much of a worker prior to going to prison. But in prison, if you're a hard worker and you want to get something out, to take back and eat or to hustle, whatever. If you're a hard worker, the cops will turn their head or pat over it when they shake, And so I became a hard worker so that I could, but by doing it over and over and over for years, I not only learned to cook, but I learned how to work hard.
Hmm.
And it got to the point where I couldn't even really stand to see people that wouldn't work hard. And so it just repetition, 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 and I learned how to cook. And so as years would go on, I would cook for all the homeboys, and we'd have big meals or whatever. And eventually, people started wanting me to cook, and that became a hustle. So when I wasn't working in the kitchen, I would cook stuff for people as a hustle, and
Hmm.
a lot of the stuff that I'm selling now in my little pop up restaurant is stuff that we've been making for years and years in prison, and to
Wow.
be honest, it's better than most of the stuff I've encountered out here so far.
Hmm. Wow. We'll talk about some of those things here at the end, but before we get to
All right.
that, I want to hear about when you got released and really leading up to that. Was it expected, and how did it go down?
It was originally when the CARES Act first came out, right before the CARES Act. No, not even right before. My 2255, which is an appeal that I told you I thought I was going to win, I fought and fought and fought, and I should have won, but that's neither
Hmm.
here nor there. Um, the COVID hit, and they come and said, well, everybody's getting out. So, there's a scale, this recidivism thing that they've got set up, and they said, well, we're doing the minimums first. Okay. And by then I was pretty good with law and doing paperwork in prison and stuff. So I made myself familiar with the CARES Act and the bar memo and the stuff that they were releasing that listed the criteria for this stuff. And so they said, okay, we're doing all the minimums today, for right now. Within 2 weeks, you're going to get, if you're a low, we're going to start on the lows. So boom, I I told people, hey, I should be home in about 70 days. This is the very beginning of COVID. And it didn't work out that way. 3 weeks later, they came and said, we're not allowed to do lows. We're only doing minimums. So it continued on like that for quite some time. And then finally, they started doing lows. And So there was always, me going back and forth with the administration that, look, I'm eligible. I meet all the criteria for this. Why aren't I being released? And finally, one day, this caseworker, after almost 2 years, and I'd caught COVID 2 or 3 good times, and this case manager of mine calls me in. He's like, "Hey, you ready?" I knew what he was talking about, but I was just so nervous. I sort of was like, "For what?" He's like, "You're going home," and I never believed it, and the guys were getting so mad at me in the unit. They were saying I'm burnt out, and I said, "Nah, something's going to happen. It's not going to happen." "Ah, you're burnt. You're old school. You're burnt. You're burnt out. You're out of here." And even when I would call my son, I say, "Hey, don't get your hopes up. Something's going to happen." And up until the morning, your computer and phone and stuff's supposed to cut off the night before you go, and mine didn't. I said, "I told you guys, it got shot down," but I got released, and my son was there, and it was a tearful and a blessed reunion.
I'll bet. And that was that was May 8th
of 22. I've been out about 5 months.
Okay,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. It's how everything's unfolded since then is just more. I'm walking in favor. I just gotta say I'm walking in favor. I'm working hard, but I've been being blessed too, man.
That's amazing. So you got out just in May of this year, and how quickly until you started working in a you're working in a restaurant, right?
Yeah. So I got released in May, and they put the ankle monitor on me, sent me to my son's house, and I sort of was adjusting. I was decompressing for a week or so. I was fearful I was going back, and I wanted to get my own place, and I knew that I needed, well, I had my stimulus money, which is so crazy. I'll tell you what, I just have to tell you this real quick.
Yeah, sure.
The morning I had got the one stimulus checked and saved it. So it was on my commissary account. So the morning I'm leaving now, I told you my phone and computer was supposed to shut off that night before, right? It didn't shut off, and I was worried. I said, "Dang, something's come up, man. My stuff should have been shut off." So I get up that morning, and I log on, and I said, "Well, I wonder why this is still on." And I happened to check my account, and do you know that morning, the 1,800, the first 2 stimulus checks hit with that one I had saved. And so I was, I was just blessed to have a little something to stand on. So I knew I needed an apartment, and a partner of mine, the same partner now that led me to Christ, he had been released and been doing great and stayed helping me and was like praying and praying, "You're coming home, you're coming home, you're coming home." He had told me, like, for the past 7 months, "I'll get you a job with me, or I'll get you a job at this restaurant." And so I ended up getting out. So I called him. I said, "Well, the restaurant owner," and I got to give a shout out, man. She's a great woman. She owns the Butter Cafe and breakfast spot in Dayton, Ohio, and it's great food, and it's a great place. All kinds of vegan stuff. But I called her and I said, the whole story is just nuts. I had been cooking breakfast in this place, and I was telling guys, "Watch me end up getting a job cooking breakfast." And I didn't really. I just used to. But anyway, so I need a place to live. My son's grown man, 26 years old. He needs his own place. I need my own place. I've been out 2 weeks. I call her. I say, "Hey, you have a job and an apartment?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I'm interested in both." She said, "Well, come see me." So I came. Job interview. She said, "I need you today." I said, "Okay, I need the apartment. I'll be back with the apartment money. I'll take the apartment." Now I got a job to pay for the apartment. And I just, the first day I start working this job, the two guys that are training me basically almost get into a fist fight. They both get fired. Now I'm just in here with the general manager. Just me and her work banging out breakfast. It's just, and everything lined up. So I just started working hard for her, and I've been going ever since. After about 3 months of working really hard, I just approached her with the idea of, hey, can I do my own thing? Because we close at 3 o'clock. And I said, hey, by this point, I'd been in there when the place was closed, deep cleaning and doing just a lot of stuff, and she had, thanks to God and her, she just developed the trust for me. Here I am, I'm on an ankle monitor, just got time, but she gave me a shot. She's like, yeah, if you want to try it, try it. I mean, she gave me she gave me a price for rent. I'm not saying, but
yeah. But
and so I took it.
That's such a great. Just if I can say this for a minute here, it's such a great, really testimony. I mean, you were talking about hard work before and having that work ethic, and a lot of people would come out in that situation and would kind of be moping around and thinking, oh, I don't know, nothing's going to work out, or they just kind of go through the motions at work. But you went into it kind of with a plan. It sounds like that you were going to work hard and then move into this next step in order to have a pop-up restaurant so you could go from there. That's just incredible, man.
John, 18 months ago in prison, I wrote my whole menu out.
Oh, wow. Completely
drew a floor plan, everything. I mean, the floor plan's not the same, but it's just your thoughts have a lot of power. Writing stuff down has a lot of power, man. And
yeah,
it's been good. Yeah, I mean, now. Let me say this: I'm 50 years old, so I'm working and I feel it. I'm working hard. We bang out during the day, and then I don't have any help. I can't afford to pay any help because it's too slow. I don't have somebody in my window, so I take the order, and it's good that it's slow because I'm learning how to handle it as it goes. But it's just me, myself, and I all by myself. But I'm determined to stay consistent with setting stuff up, doing it exactly the same way every day, just as if it's going to be busy.
What's your best seller on your menu for your pop-up?
It seems like a lot of people's been getting the chicken platters, which is a side of greens, macaroni, two chicken breasts on a bed of rice, and I glaze my chicken breast with just a sort of secret sauce that I got from a good friend of mine years and years and years ago, way before I ever came to prison. But people seem to like that a lot. But I think, to me, once people get the strombolis, which, as I said, that's one of the things we make in prison. We take 3 tortilla shells, put them together, and make this giant, for lack of a better word, we season up the dough real good, and then we fill it with all types of commissary stuff, and they're called strombolis. Okay. But the people have had mine. It's not like a pizza thing or anything like that. It's truthfully a prison thing, and they're like, man, they can't believe it. There's nothing that tastes like them out here. And I think if once people start coming, that'll be what really goes. But everything's good. Everything's good.
Yeah, it's a prison stromboli, but it's really nothing like a traditional stromboli. What you're saying?
No, right? Not at all. It's just got a flavor of its own.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this question, because you're a guy who plans. You wrote out what you want your floor plan to look like in your menu. When you look out 5 years from now, where do you see yourself?
When I first got out, in addition to getting this job, we have something called the Montgomery County Office of Reentry. And my goal in calling them, they offer a lot of networks and some benefits, not big, huge benefits, but they connect people with what you need: transportation, resources, help with rent. I had always heard that there's a lot of grants out here for people coming home. And so I called them asking about that. And they said, well, there is a program, but you need to take this reentry program in order to be eligible to try and get into this other program, entrepreneur program. And I said, I'm game. There's a place in my mind that would like to help people coming home from prison. I have another friend that's got a platform, and he's done that. And people don't even know what they're doing. Could carry 30. How do you think selling cut up cocaine? You just buying ounces, and how in the world can you comprehend? Well, this could carry 35 years. You have no idea. And then coming home, you coming home to nothing, and there's nothing in the federal prison to do anything for rehabilitation. They've got a couple little token programs that they get big money off of, and you just copy the next guy's book, and boom, you're through it, and they get big money, and that's all there is to it. They're not doing anything to help anybody change. So when you come home, what are you going to do? You're going to starve, or you're going to go back to what you know. And that's why and it's such a business. So they're cool with that. Recidivism helps them. There's a place I'm on house arrest right now. I'm a long, long way from ever getting to this point, but there's a place in my heart and head where I would like to possibly. So I took the reentry program. I graduated, and I'm gonna try and stay in connect with them. I'm gonna do some other stuff with them here at the end of October, and I think if I can stay linked up with them, stay doing what I'm doing, that I possibly can lend a voice to help some people one day. As far as a business, I'm not tripping on getting rich. My dream would be to open at 11 and close by 9, and just get a little something, get out of the way, go fishing and enjoy life.
Yeah, sounds like a good plan to me.
Yeah, because these 15-hour days are serious.
Yeah, I believe that's hard work, man. And we're working in the kitchen. I haven't worked in restaurants. My wife, though, she worked in restaurants growing up, and then managed restaurants. So I know how tough that is, especially on your body. It really does take a lot out of you with doing all that stuff. But I just want to ask you one more question, and then I'll let you go.
All right.
So if you could give some advice, maybe there's someone out there who's listening, either maybe they know someone or have a family member who's in prison right now, or maybe they themselves could be tied up in something that they could eventually end up in prison. If you could give them some advice right now, what would you say?
I would have a couple, probably two main things to advise somebody on, and maybe three. One is this: if you are out here and you're selling drugs not to work, to keep from working, nobody likes to go to work. The very first thing they do when you get to prison is assign you a job. So you're going to work anyway. So try to develop a work habit. That's all I can say, man. And fight. Ignore fashion. Ignore flashy things. Set a period of time that you refuse to acknowledge anything flashy or anything, and just put your nose to the grindstone, work, save every penny, and once that time's up, try to enjoy life. And I couldn't get off here without saying, develop a relationship with God. Pray. Prayer is what got me out, and that's all I got. Develop a relationship with God, and Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. Go through Him.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Do you want to plug your pop-up in case there's anyone listening who's in the Dayton area, and where can they find you? How can they order all that stuff?
Absolutely. Right now we have a limited menu. I'm located at 1106 Brown Street, Dayton, Ohio. Hours 4 to 9 p.m. for now. Closed on Tuesdays. You can just Google A New Soul Dayton. I pop up. My website's on there. The website is anewsouldayton.com. And I promise you, we're going to put a big old fat platter of food on you that you're going to love, and you're going to come back.
Well, that is awesome. And I haven't been to Dayton before, but this might give me an excuse to make my way through there. And if I do, I will definitely stop in, Chris.
One more plug. Yeah, we're slow. Sure. Your support is needed.
You said you one more plug?
Yeah, that was just it. That's my last plug. We can use the support.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. So any listeners out there, if you're in Dayton or if you know someone who lives there, support Chris. I'm going to post the links he just gave here. I'll put them on the show notes page at Lions of Liberty. You can find them there. Send them to your friends who live in the area if you aren't there. And you just heard his story. If you listen to this whole time, why would you not support him? So please do what you can to help him out. And Chris, thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story. Thank
you for having me.
All right. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that great interview with Chris Hunter. And, I talked with Chris after the show, and there's a lot more areas where we could have gone a little bit more in depth and really dug down a few layers. Chris has an incredible story, and we got to a lot of it today, but there's even more. So I think we'll be having Chris back on. He's hoping to write a book here within the next year or so. So we will keep in contact with Chris. And of course, if you're in the Dayton area, definitely check out his pop-up restaurant. I will link to all of the information on the show notes page at lionsofliberty.com. So go there to check it out. And of course, if you're in the Pride, if you're not in the Pride, if you're not in the Pride, think about joining. If you are in the Pride, then hopefully you've been enjoying our bonus content that we've had with Degenerate Gamblers every Friday with a new Secrets, Lies, and Cover-Ups, our new show, which replaced Conspiracy Corner, an awesome show, and more to come on that end. So check it out. Check out joining the Pride. And if you haven't maybe got some Lions of Liberty merchandise, if you haven't checked that out, you can go to lionsofliberty.store to see all of that good stuff. So appreciate you guys. Appreciate everyone who listens to this show and has been supporting us for all of these years. And, I hope this content, the reason that I do this is to really bring content into the world, into this space that I want to listen to. And if it's something I want to listen to, I know it's something other people are going to listen to, and I know it's going to resonate with other people. So if this interview with Chris Hunter resonates with you, and if you want to hear more shows like this, if you have some recommendations for people you'd like me to interview, you can send me an email. Send it to john@lionsofliberty.com. So that's all I got for today. Hopefully everyone is having a great Monday or Tuesday or whatever day you're listening to this. We will see you next week. Always remember to keep your head up and the fire's liberty burning.